You are now listening to the podcast for geeks and the stuff they love, where each week we'll talk about everything from anime to movies, games, and prop collecting with the people who create and love it. I'm Jeremy.
I'm Vince.
I'm James.
And this is your Geek Fix.
Lately, it seems like there's been a lot of people moving to Japan. There's a lot more and more focus on Japan. And our group, the reason why I kind of bring it up too is because I think it's hard, especially if you're into cosplay and anime and stuff like that, not being interested in or wanting to go out to Japan. I know I've wanted to go for quite a while. I was actually planning this year to go to Japan because there was a deal, particularly last year. You know, so far, I think China's still not open as far as being able to travel to Japan, which is the largest group that typically goes to Japan. So as far as the number of people they normally get, as far as tourists go, the biggest group hasn't been released to go yet. And imagine when they start to go, it's going to be just crazy over there because probably everyone that hasn't been able to go for 2 years is suddenly going to be going, kind of like a lot of Americans are right now. But the deal last year that was a good thing was you didn't know when they were going to be reopening Japan for sure. And so if you bought your tickets, which you could cancel if they didn't reopen, you know, the tickets were cheap. I mean, like really cheap. And so at one point in time, for my daughter and I to go, it would have only costed us like $600 for the two of us.
That's not bad at all.
And
like,
no, it was great. It was, I can't remember if that's each way, but even if it was each way, that's pretty darn good. That's, you know, less than or about what it would be for one person. And so that was my initial plan. And the idea of two, I mean, we'd be there in the spring was my plan, which is also a good time to go. But I didn't do it. I didn't follow through. And sure enough, they reopened. And, you know, there's tons of people that have gone this last year. And then on YouTube, I mean, like, it's just like the thing, everyone's releasing their information and stuff. I wasn't planning on really spending a lot of time in Tokyo. I wanted to go to like the smaller places and stuff, but
like the actual Japanese experience.
Yeah, like the true Japanese experience. But and I also was trying to learn more Japanese before I went, but at least a little bit more, so that I didn't run into some problems. And this year, honestly, too, I think I already brought up. You know, one of the YouTubers that I follow and enjoy is Chris Broad in Japan. And so I watch a lot of his stuff, and they have a podcast as well, which went to video this year. They actually read my story of somebody because my daughter's allergic to peanuts. And so my question was, well, what do you do as far as if you have an allergy to peanuts, how can you make sure to do something? Because he had recommended, well, you have it just written down. And also the translation, the words for saying that you have an allergy basically sounds like allergy. You know, there's a lot of words that are basically Japaneseified versions of English words, but you still have to say them right, which is hard. Like coffee, for example, is a word. So if you drink coffee, you got to be able to pronounce it right. And it's funny because you could say to them coffee, and they'll be like, I don't know what you're. But, you know, coffee, so it has to be said kind of thing.
In a very specific way.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There's also there's one for, like, toilet, too, is something similar to that, too. Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be able to have enough to be able to go. And a lot of people that are there, the way that a lot of Americans, for example, go to Japan is that they'll do it to live there is usually through, like, the JET program, which is a program that allows you within certain age range, because they also want you to be, their whole idea is they want to get cool Americans or cool people from England and stuff like that are, you know, the kids are going to really appreciate and will learn something from to teach English. Yeah. And then they send you to some really small community, which is great. Also, if you're talking about full immersion, you know, being forced to use your language, you know, that's a great way to go. And then they pay for, you know, everything. I mean, and so you're able to actually live there. You have a visa and everything, and have a living wage and stuff like that, and actually learn about Japan. Although a lot of people do drop out of the program because you don't realize how lonely you'll be until you go there. But at the same time, that, and then content makers, we were talking about like Trash Taste and things. There's a group called Tokyo Creative out there, and they really try to get as many YouTubers and people who provide a lot of content to come out, and then they kind of coordinate everything for you. They're the ones that take care of all their visas and take care of their ability to be there and to work and get a lot of your paperwork that's hard to do if you live there done. So lately, a lot of people have been going out. So it's not just, the groups that have been there. Now you got a lot of people that don't even make Japanese-related content. They're just going out there because they want to be able to live there, and they have a job that allows them to do it from wherever. And so, you might be familiar that PewDiePie went and moved there this year. He actually, because they have a dog, I think it was just for one of the dogs, wanted to be able to take the dog out there, couldn't get a flight that would allow them to take the dog. They actually had to rent an entire plane to be able to fly there. But
Maya, I think it was called, the dog, maybe?
Is the dog? Yeah.
I honestly can't remember.
Yeah. So, and a lot of others have gone out there recently. I know that even Jacksepticeye is in the process of, I don't know if he's moving there permanently or if he's just getting a place that he can kind of like live there for periods of time. But yeah, a lot of people are going, which is funny because it used to be the place where you'd have a lot of YouTubers living was LA in the United States, or we were just kind of talking about Brighton in England, which used to be just this kind of small. Yeah, in the UK, there's just this kind of small. I don't know that anything was there when I was there. It was just this little dinky place. It was like a place that I think most people lived there would like wanted to get out kind of thing. And now it has like all these restaurants and stuff. It's kind of a almost even a place to go visit vacationally. It's still low key, and I think that's the way a lot of YouTubers went there, is because it's like not too big, but it has everything that you want. And now all those same people are going out to Japan. And I was thinking about it recently because while I wouldn't mind visiting, it's not Japan as a long-term idea is scary. Because it wouldn't take much. If you think about it, if Japan was to be wiped out, there would be a lot of YouTubers that would go with it. And there are reasons. I will say there are reasons.
It's a very fun way to
look at it. It's dark, doesn't it? This is gonna be a dark episode, by the way. So if you want to wipe them out, no. But at the same time, the thing about it is on the flip side, Japan's also been working really hard to try and get people to move there. So I'll tell you more about this in a second. But if you were to move to Japan and you work with Japanese government who are trying to get you to come out there for a reason, they will actually give you a house, give you land free, and give you $30,000 each year to upkeep it. Sounds like a good deal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I'll give you the caveats here in a second. So here's the thing about it, because a lot of Japanese YouTubers, the funny thing is while you have all these people that are not from Japan that are trying to move to Japan, there's a lot of people that live in Japan and have always lived there, even whose content is purely focused on Japan itself, are trying to leave. And there's reasons behind that. And so I'll tell you a little bit about that. One of the biggest reasons is the natural disasters. Japan is the most, in all the world, has the most natural disasters. So Japan makes up only about 0.28% of the Earth's land, which actually sounds pretty high for one little country. But at the same time, Japan by itself makes up 7% of the active volcanoes in the world, 10% of all earthquakes, 20% of earthquakes stronger than magnitude 6.0, which is pretty strong. They have an average of 26 typhoons passing by each year. They have an average of 2,000 landslide disasters per year. And they make up 18.3% of the worldwide cost for disaster damage.
All of that
which is
in
a lot.
2.8% of the world.
Right. And the scary thing is that because of the size of Japan and also because of these types of disasters, because these disasters are all disasters that tend to play off of one another, all it would take is just one good major disaster to wipe it completely away. And so, which is scary if you live there. And this isn't something, by the way, that people in Japan aren't aware of. Most are, and they'll even tell you about it. It's just that kind of thing in the back of your mind, though. Partially also because for some of these things, it's been, hundreds of years. But at the same time, because it's been hundreds of years, we're now at the time for some things to happen. So I'm going to mispronounce this. Is it I think it's Nankai. The Nankai mega thrust earthquake is one of the things. So on the south end of Japan, you have these tectonic plates right there that are constantly shifting, and so they have what they call Nankai trough earthquakes, and it's there. These things are pretty hardcore, and they're constantly. It's almost like having constant tremors, almost like in LA or something like that. But on the flip side, every so many hundred years, then you have one of these really major earthquakes, magnitude of 8 to 9 class. And so the last one was about 120 years ago. And so they estimate the next one should be within this 20 years period. So sometime between today and 20 years from now would be one of these really major ones, would be 8 to 9 class. Then the capital inland earthquakes, which is just a little bit north of that, but also along the coastline on the east side. They say that their next major one is also sometime between now and 20 years from now, estimated to kill 100,000 people when that one occurs. And then you have the Mount Fuji, which is always the biggest thing that people look at. The Mount Fuji is like the icon of Japan. It's hard to find something that doesn't have Mount Fuji stamped on it. And actually, just a little side note. So Mount Fuji also has been something that I was training continuously until recently. I have a treadmill actually that has through iFit. They actually have a woman that takes you up Mount Fuji, and in about, I think it's five hikes that you do on this treadmill, which my treadmill tilts up and all that. Across these 5 periods, you're able to complete the equivalent to the Mount Fuji hike, minus the not having enough oxygen. So you're at your same elevation, so you miss out on some of that and the rocks that are constantly falling underneath your feet. But on the flip side, this year they are closing Mount Fuji to tourists, not just tourists, actually everybody. The problem has been the government decided in their recent statement was that there's been too much danger with people hiking up it because there's just so many people that go up, particularly on one face. I know, like I mentioned, Chris Broad earlier, he went up the backside recently and said even though it was steeper, it was there's a lot fewer people, but these aren't paved trails. And a lot of them are going kind of straight up and down, but you're also literally at certain times of year, you're kind of back to back. You're walking and you're stuck because nobody can move because there's such a traffic jam just going up. And so, there's been a lot of people that have fallen. There's been a lot of, major injuries and things. And the bigger thing that the government is saying is, well, but we're not making any money off this. Like all we're doing is losing money. And they have talked about, and there is a good chance that they're going to be building a rail system that actually takes, that goes up and down, not just for the purpose of tourists, but also because it would make it easier to get food up and down because they have machines and restaurants all the way up and down Mount Fuji.
Okay.
But at any rate, that is a possibility something is going to happen. But so right now they're planning on just shutting it completely down. Versus starting to charge people tickets to go up or something like that. That would also help in probably cutting back the amount of people if you just made it a little bit expensive and would help to pay for the whole thing. But at any rate,
I do also understand that they want to preserve the natural beauty and like not have too many people like go up and go down and
Right.
so on.
One thing though that was cool before is at night, because there were so many people particularly, and it takes so long to hike. I mean, people are still on the
Right.
mountain when it gets dark, is you could see lights going up the
So-
mountain, which is kind of cool. But you know, one of the things that everyone will say too is they always know, I mean, if something, when it goes off, if you're on that mountain, like, you don't have a chance. But we also know that when it goes off, based off of what we know from the history, when Mount Fuji goes, it's going to take out a majority of the area around it. There are plans on how to evacuate and get people out, but at the same time, just the cloud that it's going to produce alone is going to also produce a lot of air problems that will cause long-term problems for people. And if it blows the right way too, you've also got the risk of I mean, it's almost like having a bomb go off. I mean, just really wipe out the whole area. And the major things that would result in it going off are earthquakes. So, so these earthquakes going off, you got earthquakes that are causing problems that are going to, you know, kill a lot of people and that are going to wipe out these areas. Then you also have tsunamis, which have been reported to be, that are likely to be a problem. And then you have, you know, then you get this big volcano going off. It's a lot to take in. And so it is stated that after 300 years of Mount Fuji not going off, that it's likely to go off at any point in time. So yeah, I mean, you got that factor, which seems scary by itself, right?
Yeah,
And
more than the money, I thought you were going to say like it's like for safety precautions so that not too many people do go up there, seeing as it seems that it's going to go off.
I don't think they're as worried about that. The only thing where that's come up is the issue of it costs the government a lot to get people up the mountain to rescue people and to treat them. And so, you know, that's an issue. If for a majority of people too in the country, I mean, of course, you know, it's, yeah, if you're up really high, one of the big things that they have a problem with there is also the oxygen problem. And so if you do go up it, or if you have the opportunity and they don't close permanently like they're planning to, take oxygen with you. Most people get those little tiny ones that you're able to use. It is a good idea. Or acclimate yourself by staying at the different levels. There's stations along the way that you can actually literally stay overnight in, and kind of helps you to be able to get by. But on the flip side, the other thing that's happening in Japan that's a problem is, you know, they used to do population control there in order to, you know, make sure that they didn't become overpopulated. On the flip side, they also, you know, they had a majority of people that make up the population are now old and dying. And so, you know, so as these people are dying off and the population isn't growing as fast as it should, they're shrinking as a population every year, like dangerously, to the point where they're trying to figure out what to do. There's actually an incentive program right now to have children in Japan, and they have funny commercials to kind of support that. But at the same time, they shrank just this last year. They shrank by 511,000 people. And that's not like that many people died, and, you know, there's kids being born at the same time. No, it's just that's how much smaller they are. Period. And so, yeah, it's the largest aging population in the world right now. And so for this reason, two things have happened. One is you've got entire communities. Also, this is the other thing. The older population was okay with and grew up in these small rural communities, which a lot of Japan is. You know, it's not all Tokyo and Sendai and things. It's just, you know, there's all these great small communities that have been there forever.
Here.
Whoa, hello.
Hello.
We're talking about Japan.
Okay, cool.
And so I just covered all the disasters that are going to wipe it out with all the YouTubers that have moved there.
Oh yeah.
Explain
But at
in
the
a
same
very
time,
special way.
Yeah. But at the same time, and then we're talking about the shrinking community. The thing that's funny about the shrinking community and where you can actually benefit. So if you don't live there and you've always wanted to move there, and you're like, I don't know how I'd get a house or anything like that. Well, here's your opportunity. So what's happened is on the upside, or on the downside, is a lot of these communities, a lot of these little communities, entire towns are literally becoming ghost towns. So there's nobody there anymore. And so the upside is the government has said, well, we want to get people there again. We don't, the hard thing in Japan is that they do tend to tear down. They don't have people just buy houses typically too. So houses generally lose their value pretty quick. If you move out of your house, most people just either they move out of the house or they tear it down and they don't resell it because nobody buys used houses because generally speaking, you have to tear it down and rebuild anyways. I saw
otherwise
videos.
you get yokai ghosts everywhere.
That's right. The circle and ring problem.
There are some people that do up houses though. I think there was a Swedish person or something along those lines that was like in.
But that's the thing. So it's other people that aren't Japanese though might do that. The typically in the Japanese culture. So what they're offering though is if you're willing to move to Japan, you're willing to move into one of the small communities, they will give you the land with the house on it. In fact, there's a couple of the YouTubers that I mentioned. The ones that not the ones I've mentioned, but a couple of YouTubers that have gone out there got literally almost like the equivalent of a mansion for free. And then on top of that, you get $30,000 a year to fix it up. For so many years. And so yeah, I mean, that's a pretty great deal. Yeah, you move out there. The government even is offering incentives to get people, and they do want people from other countries now. They're really seeking because the problem is their own population isn't repopulating. And so they're hoping people will come bring their families, and that they'll also, hopefully be having kids. So they're mostly encouraging people, if you have kids, it's you couldn't do this in the U.S., somebody would have a problem with it. But at the same time, yeah, their incentive is, we want you to come and have kids, and we'll incentivize you if you have kids. And you have to have kids within so many years and stuff like that. But yeah, you get free houses. The downside is...
Yeah, I was going to say.
The downside to these houses and the downside to these communities is with people moving out, and with the increase in number of bears and of boars, they are literally moving in. So, over the past years, more and more bears are no longer up in the mountains or staying in the woods. They are coming aggressively into these communities. They're coming into people's houses. The boars just literally break into your house and they destroy it. And in these communities where there's nobody there to keep them out now, they literally take it over. So they don't recommend, if you go into one of these communities, that's, if you're a, what's it called where you go in and if you're an urban explorer.
If you're a witcher.
If you're a witcher.
You're welcome there.
There you go.
We can't have kids though.
Be aware that you're probably going to run into some bears, and you're probably going to run into some boars and yeah. So there's those issues of what can happen, but I mean, yeah, it's a crazy situation. I know Vinz has been there, right? Vinz, you've been to Japan a couple times.
No, just once on honeymoon for 3 weeks, which was plenty for a while.
Yeah.
Still miss it, but I've seriously looked into that they call them akiyas, right? Those houses.
Yeah.
And I recently saw a couple that did the same in Sicily. And like, there's a lot of.
I did too. I did too. But that one you have to invest some. That one you actually have to be investing and putting in so much, and it has to be progressing. Otherwise, you lose it. But yeah,
I think, to be honest, that's all the hidden stuff that is also in Japan, because I looked at those akiyas, and also Abroad in Japan did a small video about it. Like, they were in actual like dangerous areas with mold and really bad stuff. That
big spiders.
Yeah, exactly. But also the fact that in Japan, I believe also you have those little posts that denominate how far your land is.
Oh yeah.
And if they are gone or missing or not really sure or accurate with the zoning community, you have to pay up for that to have it rezoned, so to say.
Oh yeah.
And that those are hidden costs that pop up, and you have to have like citizenship and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's still going to be more or less than what you get for a typical house, but it's going to be a lot of bureaucratic. I mean, there's a reason those things haven't been sold in the past 20 years, for example, because some things are prohibitive. I think when we have celebration in Japan, they're going to be sold out really easy, Airbnbs or whatever.
Yeah. I think the whole requirement is you do have to maintain the like you can't tear it down. You do have to maintain the actual house that is there, or
you don't know what that is. I mean, if all the floorboards, I mean, there are tatami mats most likely. And wooden built. So if the wood is all rotten and you have to keep it into the original state, well, good luck finding that kind of wood there.
Yeah.
Back when it was built, there were probably forests out there, and now it's all just a rural.
And tatami mats are expensive to replace. It's part of the reason why you walk barefoot through, or you walk without your shoes through your house if you have a tatami mat. But because they get ruined easily. There was this really cool
story about tatami mats that I heard from a Japanese colleague of mine. But because he liked the story. And so apparently there was like this shogun or whatever, and he invited his enemies to his castle, or he was in a castle, and basically executed a lot of people on a tatami mat. And to demonstrate that he means business, he put those floor tatami mats with the blood of his enemies up on the ceiling at the entrance.
Oh, nice. So that's an idea for people to do right there.
Yeah, I mean,
no, it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
So if it's a really crappy tatami mat, you can say, well, this apartment is shit. Look up.
It's an interesting. I mean, I honestly I did look into it because I've always wanted to go to Japan and stuff, and when I'm like, oh, a free house and things like that. But at the same time, it's I don't know.
Really free.
No, and like I said, I mentioned earlier that you had this huge group of people between L.A. and Brighton, that used to be there these were the places where YouTubers were. If all the YouTubers start moving to Japan and something happens, well, our channel should get a lot of inker. No.
You made it sound like that earlier.
But also think about the fact that you're very vested in a certain culture. I mean, I always believe that Japan is a very good country to go there as a tourist, because you leave the existential core issues of the society there aside, and you see them when you're there. There was this guy in an electric little like a very small not a mobility scooter, but just the top one, like with a roof and everything. And he had like these two huge speakers and like the Japanese war flag, and he kept shouting "Nippon Banzai, Nippon Banzai."
Didn't know. Well, one thing I forgot. There was, I mean, I don't know if you guys heard about that. There were a couple of guys that were unaware after the war that the war had ended.
Oh yeah.
And you guys heard about this? That we stayed hidden and were like killing people and stuff like that. And finally, all of them were caught. I think it was 3 of them. And one of them died naturally, and then the last one finally got caught recently. But at the same time, the thing that I didn't bring up though about this whole bear thing, the thing that was interesting, I don't know if you guys got to see pictures of it, but and kind of going along with our channel, being inventive and building things and stuff. So Japanese people that were farmers were having problems with these bears coming in, and and either killing off the the animals they had, or just coming into their fields, and they if you don't know about it and you run into a bear, you're it's over with. So their solution was a robotic wolf. Did you guys see this?
No.
It's a robot wolf, and they have eyes, and the light up. They turn red, and they the big bright
That's
red lights,
like-
and then they make a noise.
That's the most
And it's-
Japanese solution to a problem ever.
It's-
Just make
yeah.
a robot to fight.
Well, they're a little bit high too. They're a little bit high
Oh.
up, and so all night long they like make noise and they move around and stuff, and it scares away these bears. And they show, you can watch video proof that it works. And so they were selling these all over Japan, so you can see videos of these.
And now the bears
yeah,
made a
that's-
robot of themselves at
They're,
fight.
they're pretty creepy, these wolves.
yeah. Well, did you see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they look pretty good though, but it's better than the other problem. In a different area, it was the monkeys that they're having problems with coming into a village and attacking. And all
Wow.
these old women decided that they would get baseball bats and they would old women that would chase down these monkeys, so they went and attack the kids and stuff and beat them, and they called them monkey busters. The monkey busters of Japan. But anyway, yeah, if you're planning on going to Japan, if you know some of the stuff, if you're trying to get a house, or you've got other things to tell us about from cultures that you've gone and visited, let us know.
If you've enjoyed this podcast and want more, stay tuned for that, but also check out our channel, join the community on YouTube that goes by the same name, your Geek Fix. Be sure to check out Vinz on Twitter at massivedmg_ and on his YouTube channel, massivedmg. Check out James at Mr. Malto4 on Instagram and the Replica Prop Forum. We also want to hear from you, so be sure to send your questions, stories, and other projects to yourgeekfix@gmail.com. In the meantime, this has been your Geek Fix.